Alright guys, I'm going to do some magazine modifications for the Hi-Point C9. So, really popular one, which everybody knows, is, I took this apart already to show you. But, the magazine, it's meant for a 380. So the front of the magazines are kind of closed in. And I've opened these just enough to where it feeds very well. Don't mess with the back ends. I saw this guy prying open the back to do a little mod with the follower. So don't do that. You do that, you're going to screw up your magazine. But you want to make, if you have feeding issues, make the magazine flush, the lips flush the body. Right? So you can see how it's taking the same shape. It's pretty much parallel with the body. Right? These back end, leave them alone for 9mm. Front feet lips, going to be flush with the body. Those need to be straightened out. Test your mags first. Make sure there's no feeding problems. And what you want to do is make sure it's not going to get caught. No rounds get caught up. It can pass through fine right here. That's one of the reasons you get jams. Because the magazines seem to be meant for 380. They just put them out with 9mm too. So that's how you change that. So, that's going to be the feed lip trick. And this is going to be stuff that I learned all over YouTube and put it together in one video, stuff that worked. It seems to work. Another thing is to bake the factory finish. Dalton did a video about this, and he says that the magazines have a finish that doesn't seem like it's been finished. So the way to finish it would be to take the magazines apart, and I'm going to show you how to do the 8 and the 10 rounders here in a second. To take the magazines apart, and you'd bake the body, take you 350 for 30 minutes. And then you'd have some cheap high temperature motor oil and just something from Dollar Tree or Dollar General. Drop it in there and it'll make it more drop free. But my thoughts, if it's got this finish all over, it'll make the inner smooth as well. And that'll give it, it'll be able to feed better. If the inside's a little slick, well, that could cause you problems as well. Right? So, bake them 350, 30 minutes, drop in oil. That'll finish this, make it slicker for a drop-free finish, make the inside slicker for better feeding, and overall strengthen the magazine body because they're kind of flimsy. You can tell the difference. It feels more solid after I did that. So, I'm going to show you how to take them apart because you're going to need to do this. I'll show you how to strengthen the springs. I use this little Allen wrench. And it's got a little indentation here. All I do is just put that in there behind it, pull, and it just pops off. Got to do both sides. Get one side, let's do the other. Go in there. Oh, well, it's kind of hard to do at this angle, but I'm trying to do it on camera. There we go. Just put it in. It holds on. These little lips kind of just clamp onto the magazine, so you just getting behind there with this little Allen wrench and popping it up, and it snaps right off, right? And then that's how you do the 10 rounder. The 8 rounder, I carefully, there you go. What you do, put the knife in, and I'll show you how you just in here, and try and do it at an angle for the camera, but maybe not be able to. Well, I'll just do it here. You can see it's a little easier. Through here you can see the metal body and the grip that's holding it. So get in between there with the blade, and you can, I barely push through, and just pop it off. Alright, so again, these little lips plug into there. So what you're doing, going in and you just pulling it upside, pulling the lip out, and it comes loose. So that's how you take the magazine apart, the 8 and the 10s. Okay, so assuming you baked your magazines and you finished the finish, making it slicker inside and out for making it drop free and for better feeding. You'll notice, if you look carefully, I've already polished this, but if you run blade through here, there can be some, I guess, some little unfinished marks here that kind of protrude out, right, from manufacturing process. You can't see it very well. I've already finished this up, but what I've done is I'll take sandpaper. You can probably see a little bit at this angle. Let's see. Where the paint barely stick where it was protruding. See, especially this one here, where it was protruding. Some of that paint, that finish is still there in between, which I'm going to do a little more now that I see this here. But I've gotten some sandpaper and just, you know, some 500, then go down to 1000 grit sandpaper and just smoothing that out, because these little unfinished edges can catch the inside of the magazine that hasn't been quite finished, and it's not really, I wouldn't say sticky, but you know, it's like rubbing against rubber or something. It's not quite slick as this finish is now, if that makes any sense. So it probably won't make a huge difference, but I think it you know, it couldn't hurt. But that definitely, I think it'd help out. You know, every little bit helps. Number one. Another thing that I've seen done, and I did on this magazine, but not on the 10s, is I've sanded, smoothened out just the inside here on both sides, just so it'll cycle a little bit easier. I don't know, really, I haven't noticed a difference that it's made, so maybe not, but you can if it makes you feel better. But definitely, I would say, doing the sides, take a look at them. If you take a good look, you disassemble the magazine, you will notice that it usually has two little points that stick out here on each side, right, from the manufacturing process. It's done kind of crudely, so smoothing that out that way. And if you bake the magazine and the inside is smoother, this is smoother, you can have better cycling. So a little bit of background information here. For those of you who don't know, which I'm assuming most of you do, but for those of you who don't, Jason Dalton was a gunsmith. He's a gunsmith that did a lot of helpful YouTube videos on high points. A majority of what I've learned is from him. I've learned a little bit here and there through the years, and stuff that I've tried that I like, and some that, you know, they didn't really, I passed over, like, I'm not going to bother. But he's a majority of what I learned was from him. Now, he was a gunsmith that realized that the main issue with the high points was their magazine. And their main problem with the magazines was their weak springs. And years ago, he came up with a simple but clever tweak with the magazines where he gave them extra tension. And I'll put this in the video later, but where he modified the magazines to give them more tension. And then he would heat treat them, which I'll show you how to do that as well. And he did that when he worked for a gunsmith shop way back. And then, from when I was reading, a loyal sub of his, by the name of Christy Rich, found Glock OEM springs on eBay and discovered that they fit and function in a Hi-Point CF380 without any modifications. Offered to ship some to him so he could do a little testing, since he was the main guy. And later he did a video requesting if anybody knew where to find Glock OEM mag springs, some online site where they could be ordered and shipped for a simple drop-in fix, to let him know. However, to my knowledge, nobody was able to find them. I've looked, I couldn't find them. I assume nobody else found them either. And if anybody did, I don't think they informed him, because he never put anything out about it afterwards. But he did discover that Ghost Ink springs for the Glock 43 fit and functioned very well. And that seemed to be a very good solution. Now, these springs can be really tight, maybe even have too much tension, right? So, he had recommended to some, I was reading comments, some people he told maybe cut half a coil, and others not to mess with it, just fill them, let it sit for a couple days and fill it up to capacity. I guess while he was doing his experimentation, he was trying to keep people up to date. And he was, like I said, I think he was a solid guy, man. But, you know, while he was tweaking it, he tried to keep people up to date. Now, they could have had a little bit too much tension. So, what I've found is that the Ghost springs, the plus 11 power Ghost spring for the Glock 43 works very well in your 8-round magazine. Right, you can see this is the Hi-Point factory magazine spring, and this is the Ghost plus 11 Glock 43 spring. You can just tell it's a better quality spring. It's thicker, it's longer. You know, you can tell it's got more power to it. Right, and this is a factory 10-round magazine spring, and this is the Ghost Inc. Glock 43 plus 15 spring, and you can see, you know, both of these are new springs, and this guy, it's a longer spring, it's a thicker spring, it's made of better material. So the plus 15 tends to work pretty well in the Hi-Point 10-round magazine. The Glock 43 Ghost Inc. spring works pretty well without having too much tension in the Hi-Point 8-round magazine. Now, there's also a plus 13. So I do this modification. You're going to have to let the sucker sit for like 2-3 weeks. And then you take them out and fire them. So you would start with the, if you had the 8-round, start with the plus 11. See how that works. If you like it, stay there. Buy a couple more for your other magazines. If you want a little more, you know, power in the spring, go with the plus 13 for the 8-round. And for the 10-round, I would just go with the plus 15 power Ghost Inc. spring. I'm going to leave a link to both of these in the description bar. I couldn't find the plus 13 on the site. I'll update it if I find it. I saw them on eBay though. But that's pretty much where we are with the springs. Now, while we're on springs, this again is the 8-round Hi-Point OEM spring. This is the 10-round OEM spring. If you want to do this the freeway, a temporary fix would be to, regardless if you have a 8 or 10-round magazine, I would call Hi-Point and request a 10-round magazine spring. You can see, I mean, they're weak springs, so you don't have to worry about too much tension here, right? What I would recommend, if you want to do this the cheap but temporary way, for however many magazines, you got 2-3 magazines, call up Hi-Point, tell them your springs are worn out, you need some 10-round magazine springs. You do the tweak, the Dalton tweak that I'm about to show you here, where you do the bends, and then you would heat treat them, you case harden them, which another trick I learned from Dalton that I'll show you later on. And that would give you a temporary fix, but it'd be more reliable than just using the stock spring the way it comes, right? It won't fix it forever. Not as long as the Ghost springs, because they're just better quality springs. But it would be an inexpensive, or I guess a cheap fix. Cheap but temporary fix. So regardless if you have, again, an 8 or a 10-round, you would call up Hi-Point. Give them your serial number. You know, you'd ask you your caliber and your serial number, and then you tell them, okay, I got so many magazines, however many you have, and you'd order that regardless. You know, put the 10-round mag spring in the 10-round, put the 10 mag spring in the 8 round for more power, right? So let's continue on. I'll show you how to do the Dalton magazine spring tweak next. Modified them to fit something like this, giving it a higher angle so you don't have that nosedive problem, right? The spring faces up. So you just bend this top coil up using 2 pliers. This big one to stabilize it. And I'll leave a link to the video in the description bar. Just basically bend it up to give it that angle. At the bottom, just kind of bend it like a foot or something, like you're arching your foot. Got to bend here and here, but yeah. So it's kind of like a foot, extending that spring a little bit. He also extends these out. This is an old spring, I'm going to have it replaced. But he extends the coils to make them longer, giving it more strength, right? More push, or more force. But that's basically it there. That should resolve a lot of the problems because it's putting the magazine, the bullet, it sits in the magazine and pushes the round higher up. So less nosedive issues and extend the spring strength there. So put that back in there. And that's it on that. I'm going to leave a link in the description bar to that. And you can see how it sits higher here. Put that dummy round in here. Right? It raises that sucker big time. Okay, so for those of you out there with a Hi-Point 45, the JHP, or the carbine rifle, or the carbine 45, you can probably go with the Thingmeister Fabrications conversion kit, right? Now, instead of having to fool around with tweaking mags and baking them, with this modification, you can simply use standard 1911 magazines. Now, it would reduce your round count by 9 to 7 in the magazine, you know, so you could have 1 in the pipe, 7 in the mag. There's a couple of 8-round mags out there, but more importantly, if you can use standard 1911 magazines, you can also use extended magazines. So there's 15-round mags out there for the 1911. There's even some drums out there. So it opens the world up to a bunch of possibilities for that thing. Now, the Hi-Point 45 seems to be a reliable darn gun, man, just without any tweaking. It's a big gun, I mean, almost the size of a Desert Eagle, but reliable as hell. So, again, the weak point is going to be a magazine. Swap that out, and you got a reliable magazine in a reliable gun. Anyway, just a thought for those of you out there with a 45.